July 24th, 2017, Village Board meeting, Hartland, Wisconsin. May I have a roll call, please?
Trustee Stevens. Here. Trustee Myers.
Here.
Trustee Compton.
Here.
Trustee Landwehr.
Here.
Trustee Swenson.
Here.
Trustee Walschlager. Here. President Vanderstill.
Here. If you'd all join me and rise, Trustee Landwehr will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This thing screwed in, my voice is changing.
If there are any public comments for items that are not on the agenda at this time, please step forward to the podium. Seeing that there is none, we will move on to the first item on the agenda is consideration of motion to approve village board minutes from the July 10th, 2017 meeting.
Also move. Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? That motion is carried. Second item on the agenda is a motion to approve the voucher for payments. However, we are going to move that out of order, and that will come up later in the meeting. Going to use my discretion on that for reasons that you'll know later on. Next item on the agenda is consideration for actions related to licensing and permits. First is bartenders and operators license that expire June 30th, 2018 for Michelle Lehman and Philip Gusk. The police chief and village clerk recommend approval of the license listed above.
I make a motion to approve both of them for their bartender license.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Those are granted. Next licenses and permits relating to the tent event to benefit Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. The applicant is Palmer Steakhouse for Sunday, August 22nd, 2017, 1 p.m. to 7 p.m. It's a temporary Class B retailer's license, street use permit, 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? That is granted. Next license is a license relating to St. Charles Catholic Church for the Fall Festival, September 8th, 9th, and 10th, 2017, noon to 11 p.m. This is a temporary Class B retailer's license for a public dance license and temporary operator's license by Jeffrey Wallach, Richard Jakunski, Keith Vanderlarschot, and Jane Wallish.
Also move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? That license is granted. Applications for a street use permit. The applicant is Stacy Laflamme for a block party, 1017 Woods Drive, September 16th, 2017, 11 a.m. to 4 p.m.
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That license is granted. Next is a street use permit. Beer Snobs Ale and Eats, Oktoberfest Party, 122 Cottonwood Avenue, September 30th, 2017, noon to midnight.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded.
Quick question.
Yep.
It says noon to midnight. Is midnight when they actually stop serving, or is that when they have to have everything cleaned up?
The latter.
You stop.
Pardon?
The latter. They have to be done and off by midnight.
Okay.
And I will add, since we're on a little pause here, that it's Beer Snobs and Hartland Inn are doing this together.
Okay.
Okay. All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? That permit is granted. Next item on our agenda is just catch it up here because there was a lot of licenses.
You're on the farmer's market.
Am I?
Yep.
I'm sorry that I'm having trouble seeing. Oh, and it's not on the board. Sorry.
Item F there. May I just talk about it?
Yep.
So item F is the farmer's market, as you saw in my note. The farmer's market was allowed to proceed by staff, but we sort of missed a step in here. Mary didn't come to us and ask permission, and we're just kind of catching up here. So this is sort of a retroactive approval, assuming the village board's okay with the farmer's market using our parking lot. we're asking for a retroactive.
I'll make a
approval.
motion to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? That's granted. Next item on the agenda, these are items referred to from the July 17th, 2017 Plan Commission meeting. Items related to a request for a wireless installation on the existing village water tower at Coventry Lane for Verizon Wireless Personal Communications. This is first a consideration of a motion to approve site and building plans. I believe I'll just read them all together. Is that fair?
Sure, that's fine, and then I'll sort of take over.
The next will be a consideration of a motion to approve a conditional use permit, followed by a consideration of a motion to approve a water tower license agreement with Verizon Wireless Personal Communications, LP, related to the use of the existing village water tower at Coventry Lane.
Also move.
Hold on. Unless you're going to move them all, and we can move on. I was just
Okay.
going to explain a little, if I may.
You certainly may.
Thank you. So the first item is the site and building plans, and that sort of goes dovetails in with the conditional use permit. Verizon Wireless has indicated, has approached the village to install a new facility down on the Coventry Water Tower. We already have one carrier on that facility today. They have their equipment housed in a small building on the site. Verizon is being required to basically do the same thing. They'll construct a small building on the site that's been reviewed by the Plan Commission and found to be acceptable. It's basically a small shed, pitch roof, shingles, the whole 9 yards, that will include their equipment, including their generator for the facility. They will then have on top of the tower their antennas, which are connected via various wires. They'll have their antennas on top of the tower. The interesting thing in this situation is that Verizon is basically asking permission to replace the painter's rings and handrails that are on the top of the tower and increase their diameter. Basically what that does is there's a little bit more space up there for the antennas. There's about 6 antennas up there for each of the carriers, and it allows a little bit more space for them to work. So they're actually asking to make a capital improvement to our water tower for that facility. So, Plan Commission has looked at it, and they find it acceptable. They put a few conditions as are outlined in the conditional use permit, mostly basically following the plans that were submitted and the representations made at the meetings, as well as the addition of some peripheral landscaping to make sure that the site is hidden as much as it can be from the neighbors.
Quick question.
Is something like this, is that with them putting all this extra equipment up there, is that going to hamper the painting projects?
There is, in the provisions of the agreement, the last item on this particular part of the agenda, there are provisions on how that gets handled. Basically, the 2 carriers that are on the tower have to come off the tower during the time that it's getting painted. The agreement we have with Verizon, or that at least staff is proposing with Verizon, has a provision that says the first time that the village requires them to remove their facilities is done at no cost to the village. The second time, and I'm looking because there's a representative of Verizon in the back just to make sure I'm not making a mistake. The second time, we split it 50-50, and the third time, we pay the full cost.
Which is
Which is what?
What is
Well,
the cost?
whatever it would cost to remove their facilities.
round number?
I don't know that I could guess that. We're not talking $5,000, but hopefully we're not talking $100,000. And it's within term, so it's not in the, it's in the 5 years, right? It's in the 5-year sequence. So remember, the license is structured so that it's 5-year sequences. And so within a 5-year sequence, if we actually ask them to get off the tower 3 times, I would say we have bigger problems going on. But if we actually ask them to get off the tower 3 times in 5 years, that would be extraordinary, because as you heard Mike say, you're really painting the tower every 10 to 15 or cleaning it every 10 to 15. So we've tried to structure it around what is realistic in terms of asking them to get off the tower.
So probably no more than once would be likely.
I think probably even in the 5-year life of this particular agreement, it's likely that we could be asking them once, and that would be it.
Well, wait a minute,
What's
is
the
it,
lifespan of your equipment you're putting up there?
Well, that's a good question, because technology is moving so fast that they maybe back to request that the village allow them to switch it out. Right now, it should, the equipment won't stay up there for 25 years. I mean,
No.
average time for the antennas is probably about 12 to 15 years.
That works out real good, because then we'll paint it every 12 or 15 years.
Can you say who you are, just so they have it for the record?
Sure. My name is Rod Carter. I'm an attorney representing Verizon Wireless. Verizon Wireless's real estate representative couldn't be here tonight, so I'm here in his place.
Thank you.
That'd be very unusual if you had them do it in 5 years, 3 times. You know, really.
It would be odd.
It's not gonna happen.
Well,
So, I doubt it. But anyway, so the first step here, the site and building plans, as you can see in your materials there. Anyway, as you can see in your materials there, the shed is really the only thing that's above ground that people can see. The top of the tower is really above what people can see, so the antennas are nearly invisible unless you're pretty far away and actually have angle of sight to them. So the Plan Commission reviewed that and recommended approval of the site and building plans.
is there, would the schedule of maintenance change if we did use an outside contractor for maintenance?
No, I see what you're saying. No, the timing of the painting and whatnot, it might actually, in general terms, I would say no, but one of the things that that particular service provider talks about is, and as Mike alluded to, is the regularity and vigilance of their maintenance program. So we might actually be able to spread some of those paintings activities out farther, and perhaps some of those washing activities out a little farther, because they take a fairly proactive approach to their maintenance activities.
Okay, and when, even though the agreements are in 5-year segments for 25 years, they're talking about over the 25 years, it's one free
No.
removal
In the 5-year
every
term.
5 years.
every 5 years.
Because they're 5-year terms that just get automatically repeated. So in a term, 5 years
Okay,
is the agreement of the 1, 2, and 3
okay,
stepping off.
okay. Do you want them separate?
At least let's hold the license and let me talk a little bit about the license separately.
Oh, go
But
ahead.
the site and building, unless you want me to finish them all, and then you can do them
Go
all in one
ahead.
fell swoop, I suppose. It's your prerogative. I'll jump to the water tower agreement. As I have already mentioned, this is an agreement with Verizon that has a 5-year term with 4 renewals thereafter, for a total life of about 25 years for the project. We have agreed to a license term that starts in the first year at $20,800 annually, probably paid on a monthly basis, but annualized to $20,800 for their use of that site. Additionally, as I mentioned, we've worked out agreements related to how the terminations would work out and how the relocations would work out, as I mentioned. All the terms, I think, are pretty well handled. It's been reviewed by the village attorney's office and changes made in connection with them as the process went on. Oh, I should mention that the license fee does increase over time, much as our others do as well. And,
CPI adjustment?
no, it's a flat number,
Oh, okay,
a flat percentage.
that's fine.
And the Verizon will pay us a $5,000 fee upon execution of the agreement. And that covers basically our upfront costs for the village attorney and that sort of review. We will use an outside engineering firm to help us through the permitting process, the final steps of the permitting process. But we've agreed that any amount of that cost above the $5,000 we would take out of the village's budget, and that was really in an exchange for more rent.
I would like to make a motion to approve the site and building plans, A, B, the conditional use permit, and C, the water tower license agreement with Verizon.
I'll second it. Okay.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Those are granted.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Next item on the agenda is items related to construct a storage building located at Hartland Meadows Retirement Apartment, 357 Cottonwood Ave.
So just as a reminder, Hartland Meadows is, of course, the retirement community that's in the downtown, generally located behind, like Snap Fitness and This Great Coffee Place, and sort of behind the new tavern Hoggers. Interestingly, when Hartland Meadows was first approved, because it is senior housing and it was allowed to go at a greater density than we allow for downtown multifamily, because of that, it's a planned unit development. So what would, in many circumstances, be a pretty quick and easy review process actually has an extra step in it. So the village board is being asked to take a look at the preliminary plan, which involves the construction of basically a garage building north of the existing facility in what might be considered by some their backyard. The garage is intended to be used for storage of equipment that's used on site, lawnmowers, bobcats, things of that sort, snow removal
Where's that currently
equipment.
being stored?
I beg your pardon?
Where is that currently being
I
stored?
believe he's currently has that wedged into his underground parking, but I think he wants to be able to relinquish that space so it can be used again for underground parking of his tenants. So he's requesting that, but in order to approve that, like I started to say, ordinarily that would be a pretty easy process under the zoning code, but because it's a planned unit development, everything on the site was, I'll say, negotiated and agreed upon back when it was developed, so any changes to that have to go through that PUD process. So you have to hold a public hearing in a month to take comment on this. I will tell you that the Plan Commission did have some guests at their meeting in regard to this, and any concerns that were expressed, and they were mainly about screening and that sort of thing, lighting, those were addressed, and you'll find that those were in the conditions that the Plan Commission set on the approval. So, for example, downcast lighting, the commission also recommended, if you will, denial, or requested that a new parking lot light that was planned be removed. They made some other conditions related to foundation planting and things of that sort. So,
And that building wouldn't be any closer to the back of the buildings that they have right now anyhow, will it? I mean, it won't be closer to the lot line.
it will extend north, but it will be. This is where I
Yeah.
get into this thing where it's a little strange with the zoning scenario. Ordinarily, the zoning requires a 25-yard setback,
Yeah,
25-foot setback in the rear yard. This building meets that requirement, but because it's a PUD,
you don't.
there are no requirements. All of the requirements are negotiated. So we have to essentially negotiate and allow going to the 25 feet. It's a little bit strange, but, so your task tonight
does
is if
meet
you
it.
have any questions on the building plan, we can certainly talk about that, but otherwise, we would ask you to set a public hearing for the last meeting in August.
I move we set a public hearing for the last week in August.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? That'll happen. That's granted. So that's for the public hearing.
Public
in
hearing and
August.
your action would probably be that night as well. We'll have
Okay.
we'll have the amendment, the PUD amendment document there for you to review.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is consideration of a motion to approve the site and building plans for an addition to H&M Solutions at 581 South Industrial Drive.
This, the village board can see, is a request from HM Solutions to add nearly 26,000 feet to their building. They're proposing to take the back wall of their building as far toward Highway 83 as they are allowed under the village code. In that remaining rear yard, they will have some stormwater facilities to handle the building runoff from the additional impervious surface. Plan Commission reviewed items related to the parking and parking at the site is more than adequate, not only for their current employee base, but certainly more than adequate for the likely employees in that building, even in the future, should they actually sell. So, Plan Commission, very comfortable with this. They get, as a result of the improvement, we actually get a better situation for their refuse. They have additional storage and warehousing space for their business, which is continuing to grow. So we're basically allowing them to grow here organically rather than having to move somewhere else. Recommended for approval by the Plan Commission.
I move we approve the site and building plans for HM Solutions.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Those are granted. Or that motion is approved. I'm sorry, that's improper. Next item on the agenda is consideration of a motion to approve change order number 1, final, to the 2017 Utilities Program contract with Wood, Sewer, and Excavating, Inc. to adjust the final quantities in the additional amount of $49,544 for a revised contract amount of $498,892.
Brought before the village board for your consideration is the final change order. This incorporates the final quantities on the project. A couple meetings ago in a staff update, some information was presented to the board in the staff update that we were encountering additional storm sewer item quantities. Part of the cause was that we had excess deterioration on the outside of the structure that couldn't be seen on the visual inspection of the inside of the structure when the contract quantities were put together. The other thing that was encountered is the original contractor for the Bristlecone Pines subdivision poured a lot of excess concrete outside of these structures. So when our contractor tried to remove that concrete, it had adhered to some of these other adjusting rings. So instead of removing like 2 rings, we were removing 3 and 4 rings, which caused the extra depth of repairs that needed to be happening. So the final quantity was just under $50,000 for additional storm sewer repairs on the contract.
Why would he put all this concrete in there?
We don't know why that extra concrete was put in there.
He ordered too much and didn't have a use for it, so he dumped it.
Well, when you're digging a hole, you don't know what's there, so I make a motion to accept it.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? That motion's carried. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Now we'll move up. Originally, item number 3 on the agenda will now be moved up, and we will consider that motion to make the vouchers and payments in the amount of $482,731.32.
So I'll move then now, pay the bills for $482,731.32.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? That motion is carried. Next item on the agenda is consideration of a motion to approve award of a contract to Frommer Asphalt Sealers LLC for the 2017 crack sealing program in the amount of $50,000. Was that right?
As part of our ongoing maintenance of streets, we're doing crack sealing operations. Each year we bid out the project. We look at what the previous costs per years were, and we estimate a quantity. We do put in the contract documents that should the prices come in lower, the village has the authority to raise the contract amount, the awarded amount, to meet our budget. And contrary, if the prices come in higher, we could reduce the amount that we put in. This year, we got some very good prices. $1.09 per pound installed was the lowest price. This contractor last year bid $1.89 per pound. So they dropped their prices 80 cents a pound. So in order to take advantage of this, because the next lowest price was $1.35 a pound, I'm asking the board to consider awarding the full $50,000 budgeted to Farner Asphalt.
Also move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? That motion is carried. Next item is consideration to approve the intergovernmental agreement regarding settlement of certain unpaid special assessment and special charges with Waukesha County.
This is a new agreement that Waukesha County is bringing for all municipalities to sign. They have had issues with larger businesses that have delinquent water bills, delinquent special assessments. What we could do in the past is we could put those on the tax levy, and if they don't pay it, ultimately the county tries to collect that. And the county is having some issues with some other municipalities putting $25,000 or $50,000 items on there, not getting payment, and then the county is on the hook for it. We don't have any instances where we have anything this large, but it's an agreement that we have to complete if we want them to do our tax billing. So it's just saying if we have any, like utility bill or special assessment, over $25,000 in some instances, we cannot put it on the tax levy. Cannot put it on the tax roll. So.
Is it, Ryan, that it doesn't go on the tax roll at all, or that it can go on the tax roll, but the
They
county
just
won't
won't
make us whole?
They won't make you whole on it, correct.
And so that's
You
an
have to
important-
chase it.
That's an important item, and many people don't realize that. When we put special assessments or special charges on the tax bill, if the individual doesn't pay their tax bill that year and doesn't pay that charge as a result, the county actually makes us whole. So we get our money from the county, because the county has the hammer of, if you do that long enough, they can take your property away and sell it and get the money that way.
Except for personal property. That's the
Except for
only.
personal property, that's the only exception. But on real estate, real property, that's the way that works. And what the county is doing is sort of limiting their exposure so that they don't end up running into these very large numbers that are beyond what the tax, or beyond what they're likely to recover in a sale.
He must have got stuck.
I think
Well,
they probably did.
They have another municipality who tried to put $60,000 of weed cutting on the tax bill for a business.
That's what, yeah, they start just putting it on there because you guaranteed your
Yep.
money.
You are.
Well, yeah.
You still, even if they don't make us whole, we still have the threat of they could, if you don't pay it.
What I think the county is saying is for these,
Not anymore.
not anymore, basically, but for the very large ones. Now, for ours,
Yeah.
$1,000 here and there kind of thing, we're okay. But for the very large ones, that above 25 or above 50, depending on the category of expense, the county is basically saying, we're not going to make you whole. You're still going to get your taxes, but on that big thing, municipality, you're in charge of getting
Yeah.
that money. So you have to go through the process.
So we lose some of the clout of the tax bill.
You just have to collect, yeah, you have to collect it on your own. If they don't pay it and you go 3 years down the road, you have to try and get it. The county, I think, is running into issues where municipalities are putting $25,000, $50,000 items on the tax roll and saying, the county will get it, the county will get it. And it pretty much becomes uncollectible for them if that business goes out.
So basically what happens if the county doesn't pay it, it would go a judgment against them on their taxes next year again, wouldn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, it
As long
continues
as
to
there's
hold
still
on.
a.
Yeah, so it's on, so they would have to catch it the following year.
Correct.
Okay, I can see why.
So the request is to go ahead and approve this agreement so that we can continue to use the county for our tax
Well,
bills.
we don't have a choice.
Well, more or less we
like
don't.
one. Also move.
Second?
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? That motion is carried. Next item on the agenda, consideration of resolution number 724, 2017-01, a resolution approving a $700,000 general obligation note with First Bank Financial Center related to the fire department apparatus.
Also move that we approve.
You're gonna get a second, you're gonna have to raise some money. I'll second it.
What's it
At
worth
least
to you,
being on a dance or something.
May I, just quickly under discussion, may I?
Yeah, you absolutely may
Thank you.
explain what the apparatus is.
So,
Absolutely.
obviously, we're talking about the fire department's new vehicle, which comes in at a little over $1 million. As we talked about a number of times through the process, we'll use funds that are in the corporate reserve to pay a little over $300,000 of that cost. Those are funds that have been accumulated through payments related to the predecessor to the machine that we're just getting, or to the vehicle that we're just getting, as well as the other vehicle that's the functions of which are being combined onto the new apparatus. No, that's all right, Dave. We don't need to go through the truck again. I know. It's coming soon. Anyway, so it's the $700,000 to pay the rest of that cost. You see that you remember from the agreement that we're getting a rate of 1.75% from First Bank here in the village, and certainly a good process. I will mention to you that the final resolution that you have in your packet was modified slightly by the attorney's office, really to stress the fact, I had alluded to it in the end, but he really wanted to stress the fact that there are some final tweaks that they are making to the loan documents that were provided to us by First Bank. And so what they've asked is that the final version of the agreement, of the resolution rather, approved by the village board, authorize those changes as they may be acceptable to the village attorney's office. So
So you didn't have $1 million in petty cash, huh?
we did not have $1 million in petty cash. We only had $300,000 in petty cash.
Hey, Dave, they get the flames painted on it?
So the 300,000 will get cash, and this 7,000 is allowing us to go.
You don't want the truck back
Correct,
either,
just to make it
right?
perfectly
So
clear.
ultimately, the documents that we have for you to sign tonight may change slightly, so we may have, that's what we have to
But
look
that would
at
come
tomorrow.
back to us, correct, for a final? Or
Not to
no?
the village board.
No.
That's the point of my comment, is that the village engineer's office, village attorney's office rather, is working on the final version of the documents with the attorneys from the bank.
Okay.
And once those concerns, which relate to really
Minor.
taxes that the bank might be having to pay, and no, that's the biggest issue.
Minors.
There's
They
just
are.
small language.
They're
Yeah,
just
that's
small
what I mean.
language
It's-
tweaks
yeah.
that they're going for, and I just wanted the board to know that we're asking that the resolution authorize those last changes to the Exhibit B documents that you had, that long group of documents that were sort of formish looking. And that's the problem. They're all form
Yeah.
contracts,
Yeah.
and the I keep wanting to say engineer. The attorney's office is asking for some changes that benefit the village.
Okay, so you want a resolution approving the 700,000 obligation note with attorney-approved changes?
That's perfect.
Okay, I got that motion.
What about my motion?
There is a motion on the
Oh.
floor, so
but I
technically,
second-
We had it.
What's going
It's
on?
You
been
have to
seconded.
amend your
I already
motion
seconded
then.
It's
that
been
would technically
seconded
be an
already.
amendment to the motion.
We got a crossfire here.
No, that's all right.
Yeah,
He has
It's amended.
the,
Second.
It's been moved, amended, and seconded.
twice.
All in favor?
Do we need a roll
All
call for
opposed?
that? Procedure?
That motion is carried
You don't have
with its amendment.
to.
To borrow?
To do what?
To borrow, don't we need a?
Do we need a roll call to borrow?
no.
Oh. Okay.
I mean,
want a
certainly
roll
you
call?
could.
If you
You
want
could do
one,
a roll
you can
call.
have
It
one.
certainly wouldn't hurt.
If you want one, yeah, definitely.
It's not a bond sale.
It's not a
No.
bond sale. That's
Hey,
why I don't
Dave?
think we have.
Oh, because it's with the bank, private,
Hey,
okay.
Dave?
Sir. Oh, that Dave.
Oh,
But if you care to have
If
one.
you want one, I'll. Okay.
that loan's in your name.
Yeah.
Okay, next item on the agenda, we have the consideration of a motion to approve an agreement for the provision of sanitary sewer and stormwater service by the Village of Hartland to the Town of Delafield.
So you have had a couple of items attached to your agenda, materials related to this. One was an email from the village attorney's office to the town attorney for Delafield, and then the latest version of the agreement. Let me back up and remind you what we're talking about here. The Hawks Haven subdivision, which is in the town of Delafield, on Maple Avenue, south of the River Reserve subdivision in the village, so this is south of North Shore Drive, basically between the River Reserve subdivision, which is in the village, and the Hawks Nest subdivision, which is in the town of Delafield. It's an 11-lot subdivision that is being developed outside of the corporate limits of the village because the agreement we have, called the Lake Country Corridor Compact, between the village and the city and town of Delafield, doesn't allow that parcel to be annexed to the village. Further, it requires that the village provide that parcel with sanitary sewer service. You'll recall this from the conversations we had during the approval process. So what this agreement outlines is the terms by which we're providing sanitary sewer service to that subdivision. Those terms are pretty cut and dry and are well explained in not only the corridor compact, but in previous agreements that we have with the city, or rather with the town related to other subdivisions that are similarly situated. One of the other aspects that comes into play is stormwater maintenance and stormwater transmission. This subdivision's stormwater will flow into the village and run through our stormwater system, ultimately ending up in the Bark River. So there are some provisions in here that allow that and address how that gets handled and address how the cost of that is handled, and the way the new owners in that subdivision will pay essentially the village of Hartland for transmitting that water, and how those owners will ensure that that water is clean so that it isn't damaging to our required permit tolerances or permit discharge requirements. So those are the two main items that are included in that agreement. We are 98% complete with that, but we'd like to be able to move it forward here in the next couple of weeks before the village board meets again. So you can see where the attorney's changes have been made, where we have agreed to the last requested changes from the town's attorney, and where we're requesting some changes. The changes are getting to the point where they're minutia. They're about timeframes for how long things have to last, and for how long do certain agreements or sub-agreements have to be in place. So we're asking that the village board approve this with the final document as approved by the village attorney's office.
I will make that motion.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? The motion is carried. Next item on the agenda is discussion related to the village's involvement in nationwide coordination protocol development efforts.
So that's a rather formal way of saying, how much does the village want to be involved in the ongoing effort related to federal coordination? Recall, Hartland has been sort of in the news in the vaping industry because this body has decided to intervene using coordination, that federally required process where agencies of the federal government have to engage with local municipalities about regulations. We have decided to intervene using that process in the vaping regulations put forth by the FDA. Mr. Grant, whom you know and remember as the hearing officer for our coordination hearing, has asked the village, as you saw in his email, has asked the village whether it would be interested and willing to be involved in an effort he is going to try and undertake on a nationwide basis to create a standard protocol at the federal level for how agencies are supposed to undertake coordination with municipalities.
Personal opinion, I think we've done our thing with it already, and I think it's time to back off.
I think we should probably follow through on that.
Let me make sure that we're going to separate the two issues
Okay.
here. I think that without a doubt we'll continue to go forward with the vaping coordination effort. I think we'll continue to push on Commissioner Gottlieb and Health and Human Services and the White House to the extent we need to forestall or repeal those regulations and replace them with something better that we've had the opportunity to assist in the creation of. I hope that the village will continue to undertake that very focused process. But this is the question of the more broad, and perhaps that's what you're talking about.
That's what I'm talking about.
Is maybe we don't want to get into that so heavily, but we'll stay with the focused effort.
Stay with what we had originally agreed to do and started.
What would the other aspect of that be? I mean, how involved, or what do we,
Well, what's going on kind of is, so we're past the deadline and we haven't heard back from them, number one. If you
Right.
remember the trip where we went out to
Right.
DC and all of us sent, we had all signed our documents and we sent those things in. They haven't gotten back to us yet. So I think now is a good time to send a formal letter to
Right.
each one of the people we originally sent one to in our fight for our industry here in Heartland.
Right.
And now if we wanted to take on something greater, that's something the board has to talk about. But, you know, that, what we all started, I think we're all in agreement to send a letter for that, to be fighting for Johnson Creek, our business, to scale back those regulations in protection of them and our community. You know, I think that's a great idea, but that's not much of a effort. It's sending a letter at this time. And then we can readdress what, or revisit that bridge when we get to it if they don't respond after this letter. On the other front is this taking coordination, like a lot of, well, all of us learned about when we were going through that there's this much broader sweeping thing where the coordination is almost kind of getting put to the forefront, where it can be used for many different things outside of just the FDA. It can be used with all kinds of different agencies. And, you know, now we're kind of getting at a deciding point, you know, as you guys saw with Fred's email, to say, hey, you know, what do you want to do here? If they ever do create something that where you can coordinate, yeah, Hartland may use it sometime, may be part of it, but the board has to decide, do they want to be, you know, a spearhead to.
Is he asking us to be like a conduit for other efforts in, like, California? That a company in California wants certain coordination, or a group in California, and to use us to forward it in?
He's not so much asking to use us, he's asking us to spearhead it, where since we were the first one to go and meet with them in Washington DC, and we already have an idea of how we want it to work and how we think it could work, that we would.
Put some costs to it.
So no, we wouldn't. Well, you asked the question, how much time does it entail? I don't even know how to answer that question.
Right.
Because we don't know how many other municipalities would be involved. The ideal is that you get a cross-section of the United States. So we might have municipalities from all 50 states. There might be conference calls. There might be, I don't know, there might be the occasional face-to-face meetings. I have no idea what it could entail. But to your comment, no, we wouldn't be a conduit for another business doing it. What the hope is that rather than having to reinvent the wheel, because as you recall, Mr. Grant talked about the fact that he's done this, that is coordination, with other locations. You heard it relating to grasslands and ranchers and highway, I think, in Texas, and a variety of things like that.
Pardon me.
What he's hoping to do is rather than having to reinvent that wheel every time, get a cross-section of municipal representatives and business representatives from across the country and the federal government together to say, draft over, and I'm going to just throw a dart at the board and say, over the next year or two or more, the protocol that says, okay, this is how the federal government is going to handle coordination. This is how we're going to proactively ensure that we're engaging our municipalities. The EPA has a method of doing this. FDA doesn't. Perhaps there's other agencies that have some methodology by which they engage with other governmental entities. But the goal, at least of Mr. Grant, is to try and create something that's federal government wide.
Well, I feel it would be very important for us to have some participation in that. Not that every person here has to, but, you know, maybe 3 or 4 people could be on that committee.
I don't mind getting involved, but I can see them typical saying, now you're the #1 front runner of this for $10,000 or something like that, or you gotta go to Detroit, or you gotta go, all of a sudden you're gone twice a month someplace, and who pays for that, or whatever.
We're not. In my opinion, that's an opinion, that's not a fact. But.
Well, and I think it's a real possibility that if you get into this effort, and that's why I sort of made the comment, is it conference calls, is it video conference, is it going somewhere? Certainly if the village is going to be involved in this, and I might add that I think it's probably, and I'll use the phrase, a very noble effort, because as I'm sure this board can agree, certainly things happen in Washington that make no sense to those of us out in the Midwest.
Yeah.
And it might be appropriate for municipalities to be involved and for us to be involved. But I think that from our perspective, we need to be careful how deep that hole can get.
That's what I'm afraid of. I don't mind spending a little money, but
The
all of a sudden.
second thought I have is, what happens if one of these anti-smoking groups decides they're going to sue us, or put a lawsuit against us or something?
Yeah,
That's
We put ourselves out there.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a thought too. My major concern is, yeah, could this escalate into a lot of time and a lot of expense?
Plus, we don't need marchers outside the front door.
Yeah.
Remember, this particular part of it would be the more broad issue, not associated with any particular,
Yeah.
if you will, cause. We're really talking about it's just a concept. It's, the structure of how it gets done.
Yeah, I just don't want to spend any more money. I don't want to spend any money on this. We can support them. We've done a lot of it, but what have we talked to Johnson Creek? What's their thought on this? On what?
We have not talked about this broader effort with them, no.
You haven't?
No.
You think we should?
well, I don't know whether we should get involved. We should see what they want to do in it further. If we start asking them questions, then we're getting involved.
Well, no, what
But
I'm
they're
asking is
not gonna be
asking
involved.
Johnson Creek, they're the people that we
they're
wanted
not
to
gonna
help.
be
Well, that's,
with
what's
the
happened is
broader-
it's turning into two, sorry,
It's
go
not
ahead.
gonna be, but they've got nothing to do with the broader aspect.
What's kind of happening is you have the one vaping thing, and we're going to send the letter on that, and we all, I think, are kind of in
Yeah.
agreement that send the letter and say, hey, you haven't gotten back to us. We want to protect our community,
Right.
county, or
Government
So,
missed the deadline.
right. The other thing is that now that we're in the door, and all of a sudden it appears that the government's open to it, it's almost like they're like, well, I guess coordination, you're right, but how do we do it? And there's, as Dave was alluding to, there is a system set up for one agency that seems to be a pretty good mold, should I say, for lack of a better term. But where they want Hartland to kind of be the head to guide it is just because we were in the door and met. I don't think we're going to be putting much.
I don't think we're
finance
big
into it.
enough to do that. I mean, it could
Right.
get pretty
Well, if we just-
complicated.
Oh, right.
Pass on the EPA's, but you'd think the DHS would have EPA's guidelines already.
You would think.
Don't they talk to each other?
I'm not so sure that they do.
I don't know.
That's why
don't
we
think
need
so.
to step forward maybe and.
Right.
Well,
Take
as
a
long
stand.
as let's put it this way, I think we should be amenable to doing whatever we can, but once we start getting involved in expending money and serious efforts, then we gotta rethink it and see where we're at.
So
But if
dip
we,
the
if
toe in
we're
the water, so to
facilitating,
speak.
we can pass something on, or we can give our comments and pass something on.
Mm-hmm.
But that's far different than flying someplace and
Right.
participating in a meeting and
Yep.
drafting.
Because look at the people we had from all over the country down here.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, well, where are you two guys? Well, we're in North Dakota now or something.
Right. Right.
With something,
Right.
And we're not big enough for that. But anyhow, so you're gonna send them a letter and see what happens.
Well,
That's a
Dave will-
separate issue.
certainly on the vaping, we will.
Yeah,
I don't know how you want to resolve this. If somebody wants to try and put a motion on the floor that limits it, I think it would be appropriate that the village board make some sort of a definitive statement. Right now, I'm kind of hearing that we could get involved, but with perhaps Rick's exception, we could get involved, but we don't want to be spending real money.
In concept,
Yeah.
conceptually.
I'd like to make a motion that we do get involved with the national, what do I want to call it? The
Coordination.
Coordination
Protocol
of
development process.
protocols,
Subject to,
subject to, subject to us not spending lots of money. How's that?
or time.
Well, it's gonna take time, you've got to devote some time to it.
Well, I mean, yeah, but I'm just saying, all of a sudden, look at the people we had here from all over the country.
Yeah,
And they're not gonna say, well, now Hartland's the number one fact. These two guys we'd like to see them down in North Dakota or someplace. And that's 4 days.
Hold on, fly here.
Well, that's what I
I mean,
mean.
let's go.
they're gonna provide a ticket and let's go to.
Well, even so, if
Have a
they
motion
provide
in a
it.
second.
Yep. We have a motion, but no second.
I'll What did we end up?
Just second it.
Second
Just-
it.
What are you seconding?
It's been moved and seconded
Can we
to be
refine
part
it?
of the federal
Dave will
coordination effort without funding at this time.
There you go.
Yay.
I have a question. Is this meaning that we are going to get into other facets, like the railroad problems or highway problems somewhere, or Indian reservation trouble or something, or?
It's,
The intent would not be to get into specific issues, but rather to just be focused on creating the platform by which those issues can be addressed by their local municipalities,
Hartland's coming up with a blueprint that the federal government can then.
along
hand
with others.
To along with others, that they can hand to municipalities, because even though coordination is law, at least through interpretation, and through a lot of people's views, even in Washington DC, they've never actually took care of the middle. They got the two pieces of bread and nothing in the middle, to make the sandwich. So now they want to have the whole plate full. So what they have to do is come up with a process and a blueprint for how to get there, so it can be at least standardized. So that's actually what we're coming up with. It's not that we're going to go and fight everybody's battles
Right.
all over the, but we're coming up with a blueprint by talking with some other municipal people, and it could be whoever, because of it. But we're coming up with that blueprint that then, by giving it to the federal government, all of a sudden they say, yeah, this is great, awesome, and Hartland gets the credit for it. That's that's kind of about how it was presented. I don't know if that answered your question or not.
Yeah, I just would like to see it strictly stick to vapor.
And our effort, I think, would be, but I think that obviously this bigger process doesn't focus on any specific issues, but just tries to create that system.
But we'll begin with the vaping.
There's an
It will be, the vaping will be the first thing that'll be addressed, and then there will go from there. That's what we'll be considering the blueprint from. But we may have to talk to people that are in other areas.
We need
Use
to
Russian
okay.
dressing.
Yeah. Yep. So, any other discussion, though? Is there any other discussion? Comments from the public? It's been moved and seconded. Discussion? No more discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion's carried with no funding. Oh, what do we have next? We have announcements. I don't have announcements, actually.
Well, Heartland Kids Day is Wednesday, so if you have children, bring them down and
Even if you don't go down and see what an operation that is. I mean, really, that is, there's a lot of people that are there for that.
Do you go down there?
Sure.
Oh, okay.
In fact, a couple of years ago, we ran a tent down there for.
Oh, really?
Kiwanis. But no, it's really, it's a drawing.
Well, I said, what'd they say, 4,000 people or something like
Well,
that?
the thing was just packed.
That's what when they came here, they said it was pretty cool.
No, I think they're missing something if they don't just go down and see it. Really.
Okay, so everybody should go down to Heartland Kids Day,
Yeah.
Anything else
Wednesday.
going on in Hartland?
9 o'clock.
Beer garden still open?
Yep. Concerts, et cetera, et cetera.
Concerts Thursday night?
All right.
Any other announcements? No?
No other
Okay.
announcements.
Beer tent's open.
We
So-
have to make a motion to go into closed session? I make a motion to go into closed session.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Do you have to read this whole thing?
Yeah.
By law? I do,
Yep.
don't I? Yep. It's been moved and seconded to, there's been a motion and it's been seconded to recess to closed session pursuant to
Let's put it back.
SS 19.85. 1, deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public properties, investing of public lands, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session regarding relocation of county highway, and to adjourn thereafter without reconvening into open session pursuant to State Statute 19.85, paragraph 2. Roll call, please.
Trustee Stevens?
Aye.
Trustee Myers?
Aye.
Trustee Compton?
Aye.
Trustee Landwehr?
Aye.
Trustee Swenson?
Aye.
Trustee Walshiger?
Aye.
President Vanderstel?
Aye.
What if they say no?
Huh?
Sorry, you
Wouldn't
can't-
matter. They
Everything
do
just
it
stops, I
anyway.
think.